to the cloud. Hi, everybody. We're starting to, since I can't put this up, it won't show. The book, The Secret to Mental Health by George Pransky. And we're starting with chapter 1, an introduction. And Wendy's going to start reading for us.
So, yeah, and people, anybody on the call here, just, stop and go, wait a minute, that was really cool, or I don't get it, or whatever. We'll just make it easy to have conversation throughout. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds
great.
good. I'm just wondering if I'll see people. I have side-by-side standard.
Well, we'll use voice.
Oh, this way is better.
We could use
I
voice.
think to record it in standard, or what are the other choices? View. That's standard. This is side-by-side speaker. Oh, you know what? Maybe gallery, because I want to be able to see people's hands.
We'll speak.
Or you want to just put in the chat?
Yeah, we'll speak. We'll say hello. I have a question. How about that?
Speak up over Wendy's voice of reading. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make this standard view. But I still see all of you. So
we all set?
All set. Go for it.
Great. Chapter 1, an introduction. What if I told you that there was a set of principles that determined well-being in human beings? What if I said that people who understood these principles live in well-being? What if I suggest further that an understanding of these principles is the sole determinant of well-being? The purpose of this book is to share discoveries about the nature of mental health that have the potential to impact, for the better, the mental health of society. The current paradigm in the mental health field could be called an outside-in view of the human experience. That is to say, that the current paradigm assumes that our stress and mental illness is caused by factors beyond our control, such as biological factors, childhood conditioning, trauma, and life stressors. Thus, the current mental health model assumes that these forces lead to our state of psyche, to the state of our psyche, which is the soul, mind, and spirit combined, which then leads to or causes our behavior. It makes perfect sense that psychologists would assume that these factors are calling the shots. After all, everyone does have a biological makeup that's often visible in the person's behavior. Traumatic life events do impact people in various ways. However, there is evidence that shows that these external factors are not running the show. Members of the same family could have very different levels of mental health, even though they share the same family of origin, conditioning, and biological
Wendy,
factors.
can you move it down so we can see on the screen?
I don't know what you mean.
Move it down. All we see is the first page. We don't see where you're reading now.
I have the second page. It's come up.
You see it? I do not see it. Oh, interesting. Maybe I have to change the view side by side. No, that didn't help. What view are you on that you're able to see the second page? I don't see anything beyond psychological immune system instead of protecting us. Did you? But I thought Elaine said you saw the second page.
I have the second page, but I don't know. Whoops.
Oh, gotcha. You didn't see it on the screen. Yeah. So what, Wendy, if you click that arrow to the right, there, no. That arrow on the right, can you click it? There you are. Now we're on the second page. Oh, you went a few too many. Okay, now one head. There we go. Excellent. Who wants to read? You want to keep going, Wendy?
Sure. One sibling sees his past for what it is, memories carried through time, through thought. The other sibling doesn't see memory for what it is. The thoughts and feelings that come to mind as memory look real to him and therefore have a strong influence in his life. New discoveries about mental health suggest an inside-out view of the human experience. The psyche is not a passive victim of powers beyond our control. To the contrary, it is the psyche that is actively creating our moment-to-moment experience. It is our psyche that creates the perception that we are controlled by outside factors. Two people under the same life stressors will be affected differently. Person A sees these stressors as threatening to the point of debilitation, while person B sees them as all in a day's work, no threat, no problem. The inside out model shows that our experience of life works in a different direction. When people gain a true understanding of how the mind works, how the psyche is able to create our moment-to-moment experience, this understanding influences the functioning of the psyche. The more understanding a person has, the better they function. The history of physical health provides a parallel example of the changing the paradigm. For many decades, it was thought that germs were the direct cause of physical illness. As the medical field gained an understanding of the role of the immune system, it realized that the immune system was at least a middleman, a party to people's illness. Indeed, a culture of any human tongue would show a multitude of germs, yet people aren't constantly sick. The strength of the immune system is the controlling variable in a person's moment-to-moment health. This book will explain how understanding strengthens our psychological immune system. Instead of protecting us from germs, it protects us from all those factors listed above: biological, childhood conditioning, traumas, and life stressors. Like germs on the tongue, all these factors could potentially affect us. As the psychological immune system gets stronger, these factors have less influence on us. I'm going to stop here because that was a huge, just reading that book recently, I gained a new appreciation, if not an introduction to the fact that the understanding of our psychological immune system, as George is putting it, by understanding it, we impact it positively and build up our immune system. That it goes hand in hand. And I don't think that I had that appreciation before George laid it out like that. It's just like we support our immune system of our bodies by wearing winter clothes outdoors when it's cold, by not touching doorknobs, as much as we can, or washing our hands frequently, things like that. We get that we can support our immune system to take care of ourselves. It's going to be better if I take care of my immune system. But if I just keep running outside half naked and in the winter, and I rub my face with door handle knobs, I'm not doing my immune system any good. Right. So that was really interesting to me, that relationship that George paints. I really appreciated that. Anybody want to read next? Am I by myself in here?
No, you're not. I'm here. I can't see the words.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Okay.
You can pick it up if you want. You have the book in front of you or no?
No, I do not. I'm at the
okay,
office.
You want to just put it back on, you click something that took it off the screen one day. That's
I
all.
did that because nobody was speaking to me, so I couldn't tell if I was by myself in the room. That's why I clicked it off.
Gotcha.
All
I
right,
have
so
all of us on the right side.
Lori, you going to read the mental health field?
Sure. The mental health field has assumed that external factors are the active forces driving a passive psyche towards stress and mental illness. Since the illnesses originate in the mind, of each person, then the mind must be addressed for the illness to be cured. The psyche has not been addressed or understood by the mental health profession because it is seen as a passive agent. Very interesting, right? The field of psychology, excuse me, doesn't study the mind as I am defining it. It studies the brain. It focuses on understanding memory and understanding the hardware of the brain. The brain is our mental hardware, our personal computer. Memory is the data stored on that computer. These new discoveries I'm describing suggest that the mind is something entirely different from the brain. The mind provides the software, the intelligence that is used to process our memories. The mind is also the intelligence that allows for original thought, insight, and creativity. This intelligence does not come from the brain, but rather goes through the brain. When you study the mind, you must ask certain questions. To me, these are the questions that address the issue of well-being. What gives us the power to think? What is the source of creative thought? How does the mind create our moment-to-moment experience of life? Why do thoughts have so much influence on us? Why and how does thinking look so real to human beings? How much freedom of thought, free will, do we have? And then he goes on about, in 1973, a Canadian man with a 9th grade education had an epiphany that answers these questions and more. So we're 7 minutes to the end. There was so much there. Let's open it up to just talk. You want to stop sharing for a minute, Wendy? I mean, there was just so much there. What do you think, Elaine?
It's very powerful. The whole concept of how, the mind is loaded with so much intelligence, and trying to access that intelligence without all of this rigmarole, without all of this conditioning, is so much lighter than what we were taught, what we learned. And, I enjoyed reading the book because we're talking about the whole concept of mental health rather than mental illness.
Yes.
And that was very enlightening and very powerful, because even in in our industry, we're always trying to fix mental illness, but we're not looking at everyone's mental health, because mental health can actually be a positive. It doesn't have to be a negative all the time.
I know. Can you imagine if every time you went to your primary care doctor, he said, "What's wrong? Tell me what hurts. Tell me what aches," as opposed to saying, "Have you been taking your vitamins? How's it going with getting enough rest, and are you keeping your weight down?" Like the primary focus, I think, of a lot of primary care doctors is to support our health. Now, not all medicine is that, like there are some, but in general terms, our children have wellness checks. And we go primary care once a year to make sure that we're, meeting all the criteria of staying healthy at our age and stage in our lives. But if every time we showed up there, all they said was, "Oh, you think you feel good? Do you really? Let's really dig in and figure out, do you really?" Or, or I want to do a lot of x-rays and see what we can find that's wrong or whatever. That's just, so we lost our way when it came to supporting mental health.
Yes, we have.
Lost our way, or were we ever on the path? I don't know, but
We were on the path, because when I first came into the field, it was all about positives. It was all about how we can use our gut and our instinct to stay well. But what I've experienced in the years that I've been doing this is that the trends constantly shift. based on where the money is.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
when I first came into the field, there was this big push with, Freud and using Freudian concepts, and Freud was the best. And then we shifted and we moved on from Freud and we went into Rogerian therapy, and, we focused on all the different types of therapy. And then, ADHD came out, and here's all these different medications and programs for ADHD. But guess what? Now we're going to focus on bipolar because bipolar is big. So here's all the money for bipolar. But guess what? There's no more money for ADHD. So we're not going to support that anymore. So this is how, I've seen our government working more for mental illness rather than, okay, so there are people who have bipolar, there's people who have ADHD and so forth, whatever people have, whether it's medical or psychological, we need to support that consistently, not just because all of a sudden it's here. And that's what this is how I'm looking at what I've read so far, is that we need to support what's already existing. Not constantly change, because that makes us all go haywire, because okay, there's money for this now, but no more money for that. Right.
Yeah.
The things that are changing are ways of thinking about things. Like what you were saying first, it was, the Freudian and then Rogerian and Carl Rogers and blah, 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 blah. It's, yeah, it's just so fascinating that,
Yes.
A cumulative number of people going in a certain direction. It's just thinking. It's
Right.
personal thinking that drives all of these different techniques and strategies, when underneath all of that is perfect mental health.
Yes.
We're all born with mental health.
Yes.
Nobody's born with a diagnosis. They don't come out and they have one purple toe and this one's got depression.
Right.
Or a pink pinky. This one has anxiety. And it was all so I've got 2 minutes and I don't think I need to take that call, but my phone's ringing. I forgot what I was going to say now because the phone rang. It's so simple, and it was done innocently. That's what I wanted to say. It was absolutely done innocently, that
Yes.
people truly wanted to help people. That's how it all started.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just tell you, this is really interesting. I was doing a group once online. It was a Zoom group, and a woman was on. This is a little pocket addiction of DSM-4. We're up to 5, maybe we're up to 6 now. I don't know. The diagnostics statistical manual, is that what the S stands for?
Yeah.
DSM. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And this woman, now in her 50s, I'm guessing, she was 7 years old when she was sitting at a dinner table, or their dining room table, with a group of men. She described this. I want to get her on a webinar. And they were talking. These men were creating the DSM, the first diagnostic manual, and she, at age 7, I think one of them said, well, what do you think about this? Because they're talking about all of the diagnoses. And her 7-year-old mind, she said, I don't think it's helpful. Something like that. I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, I don't think it's helpful. And her father laughed it off. Later, he went up to her bedroom and he reamed her out for saying that.
Oh
Mm.
boy.
How
Yeah,
interesting is
I've
that?
heard some very interesting stories. There's a book out there called there's a book written by a guy from the UK who has done a study of how the DSM came to be and how it keeps getting added to and added to and added to. And he's got a story of these men sitting around a dining room table, and one of the people said, "Oh, we can't put that particular one in there because I got that. So we're not putting that in there as a mental health problem. I do that. Chew my fingernails at night." So that was going to be a new diagnosis of nail chewing at night needs Prozac or whatever, right? Or this therapeutic regime to when you chew your fingernails at night. And he said, "Oh, we're not putting that in there because I do that." So it was the way that this guy went into the history of it. He goes, it was like one of the most subjective pieces of crap ever surmised.
Yeah, I agree.
There's also something, Wendy, you as a nurse probably know, and how research oriented you are. There is something about in other countries that do not have these diagnoses, they don't have the problem.
Imagine
I mean,
that.
it sounds pretty obvious, but I know that there's like an
Well,
article or a journal where that's
right.
stated, but
It sounds obvious, and it sounds obvious and I don't know what the right word is. Deductive reasoning, like, of course.
Mhm.
You know, there's something cyclical about, you're picking your nose, that's a problem. Now there's a bunch of people who have a diagnosis of nose picking and whatever. It's just, like, how of course. Yeah, so interesting.
it
Yeah.
really, really, really is. And it's innocent. It's the history of psychology, like the history of the
Yes.
world. And we're so lucky to be in a time when the paradigm is shifting to health rather than what's wrong, to what's right with
Mhm.
people. And that's what brings out the best in people.
Mhm.
You know, it reminds me of that prisoner when he stood up after a group session and he said, "I can't believe I had to come to jail to gain my freedom,
Mhm.
freedom from my own thinking
Mhm.
after being in a three principles class." Yeah, with Kathy Casey. For those of you who know Kathy on the West Coast. So I gotta go. 3 minutes late for a client right now. This was so
Okay.
much fun. I'm gonna stop recording and
Okay.
say a proper